I am sitting here in my empty apartment surrounded by boxes and the wreckage of what I thought was love. My name is Molly. I am 28 years old, and I have always believed I could fix anything broken. 3 weeks ago, I was so confident that my good intentions could heal a fractured family. I thought I was doing the right thing when I tried to reunite my husband with his mother. But now, as I stare at the eviction notice on my coffee table, I cannot help but wonder how my desire to save everyone ended up destroying everything I held dear. Before we dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from, so please drop your location in the comments below. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real life experiences. Let me tell you how my good intentions became the biggest mistake of my life. Growing up in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio, I was blessed with parents who showed me what a healthy relationship looked like. Mom and dad never went to bed angry. They talked through every disagreement with patience and understanding, and they taught me that love could conquer all obstacles if you just tried hard enough. This foundation shaped my entire worldview, and by the time I reached my teenage years, I had become the unofficial mediator among my friends. I was the one they called when couples fought the shoulder they cried on during family drama, and somehow I always managed to help people see the bigger picture. My older sister Emma used to tease me saying, I had a savior complex, but I saw it as a gift. After all, what could be wrong with wanting to help people heal and find happiness? When I moved to Denver for my marketing job at 25, I carried this same optimistic spirit with me. The city was exciting, full of opportunities, and it was where I met Marcus at a coffee shop downtown on a rainy Tuesday morning. He was sitting alone reading a book about psychology, and something about his quiet intensity drew me in. Unlike the loud, outgoing guys I usually dated, Marcus had this mysterious depth that intrigued me. Our courtship was slow and beautiful. Marcus worked as a software engineer, and while he was incredibly intelligent and caring, he was also intensely private about his past. During our first year together, I learned that he had grown up in Colorado Springs, about an hour south of Denver, but he rarely talked about his family. When I asked about his parents, his jaw would tighten and he would simply say that his father had died when he was young and that he and his mother were not close. This bothered me more than I cared to admit. How could a mother and son be completely estranged? In my experience, family disagreements were temporary storms that could always be weathered with patience and communication. I assumed that Marcus and his mother, Patricia, had simply had some misunderstanding that had spiraled out of control over the years, and that all they needed was someone to bridge the gap between them. Marcus and I moved in together after 18 months and eventually got married in a small ceremony with just my family present. His mother was not invited, and when I gently suggested that maybe we should reach out to her, Marcus became more serious than I'd ever seen him. He looked me directly in the eyes and said, Molly, promise me you will never contact my mother. Some wounds cannot be healed and some relationships are better left buried. I promised, but deep down I could not accept that any mother-son bond was truly irreparable. I kept thinking about my own relationship with my mom, how she had supported me through every challenge and celebrated every victory. Surely Patricia must miss her son, must wonder how he was doing, must regret whatever had driven them apart. I convinced myself that Marcus was just protecting himself from further hurt, but that if the right opportunity presented itself, he would welcome the chance to reconcile. The turning point came 6 months after our wedding when I was browsing Netflix and stumbled across a documentary about families who had been reunited after decades of separation. The stories were incredibly moving, showing parents and children embracing tearfully after years of misunderstanding and pride had kept them apart. As I watched, I became more and more convinced that Marcus and Patricia could have a similar happy ending if someone just took the first step. That someone I decided would be me. I spent the next week researching Patricia online using every social media platform and public record search I could find. It took some detective work, but I finally located her living in a mobile home park in Colorado Springs. Her Facebook page was sparse, but I could see that she was 62 years old, worked part-time at a local grocery store, and seemed to live alone. There were no photos of Marcus anywhere on her profile, which made me sad but also hopeful that maybe she was respecting his wishes for distance while secretly hoping for reconciliation. On a Thursday afternoon, while Marcus was at work, I gathered my courage and called the number I had found listed for Patricia. My heart was pounding as the phone rang, and when a woman answered with a tentative hello, I nearly hung up. Hi, is this Patricia? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, who is this? My name is Molly, and I am married to your son, Marcus. I hope you do not mind me calling, but I thought you might like to know that he is doing well. There was a long pause, and then I heard what sounded like a sharp intake of breath. Marcus? My Marcus. He is married. Yes, we have been married for 6 months now. He is such a wonderful man, and I thought maybe you would like to hear about his life. Patricia's voice became excited, almost breathless. Oh my goodness, yes, I would love that. You have no idea how long I've been hoping for news about him. Is he happy? Is he healthy? What does he do for work? As I answered her questions, I felt a warm glow of satisfaction. This was exactly what I had expected. Here was a mother who clearly loved her son and wanted to be part of his life. Whatever had happened between them in the past, it was obvious that Patricia regretted it and wanted to make amends. Would you maybe like to meet for coffee? I found myself asking. I could tell you more about Marcus, and maybe you could help me understand what happened between you two. I really think there might be a way to fix this. Patricia agreed immediately, and we arranged to meet at a diner halfway between Denver and Colorado Springs the following Saturday. I told Marcus I was going shopping with a friend, hating the deception, but convincing myself it was necessary for the greater good. The drive to the diner gave me time to rehearse what I would say. I would listen to Patricia's side of the story with an open heart, help her understand how to approach Marcus, and gradually work toward bringing them back together. It seemed so simple, so obviously right. Patricia was already sitting in a corner booth when I arrived, and I recognized her immediately from her photos. She was a small woman with graying brown hair and tired eyes, wearing a faded denim jacket and clutching a coffee cup with both hands. When she saw me, she stood up quickly and smiled, though I noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Molly. Oh, honey, you are even prettier than I imagined. Please sit down. Tell me everything. As we talked, Patricia painted a picture of regret and misunderstanding. She explained that she had remarried when Marcus was 12 to a man named Richard, who she described as strict but well-meaning. According to her, Marcus had been a difficult teenager who rebelled against Richard's authority, and the situation had escalated until Marcus left home at 18 and cut off all contact. Richard sometimes was hard on Marcus, but boys need discipline, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. I think Marcus just never understood that everything Richard did was to make him stronger to prepare him for the real world. But you know how sensitive kids can be. I found myself nodding sympathetically. It sounded like a classic case of a teenager clashing with a stepfather, something that probably could have been resolved with family counseling and better communication. Patricia seemed genuinely remorseful about how things had unfolded, and she kept emphasizing how much she missed her son. I have thought about him every single day for the past 10 years, she said, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. I know I made mistakes, but I was trying to hold my family together. Richard is gone now, he died 3 years ago, and I am all alone. All I want is a chance to tell Marcus I am sorry and that I love him. By the time I drove home that evening, I was completely convinced that I could facilitate a beautiful reunion. Patricia had given me a handwritten letter for Marcus expressing her love and desire to reconcile, and I had promised to find a way to get it to him. She had also shared some childhood memories that painted a picture of a loving mother-son relationship before things went wrong, which reinforced my belief that their bond could be restored. Marcus was cooking dinner when I got home, and he greeted me with a kiss and asked about my shopping trip. The lie felt heavy on my tongue, but I told myself it was temporary. Soon, I would be able to reveal the wonderful surprise I was orchestrating. I waited until after dinner to bring out Patricia's letter, presenting it casually as I cleared the dishes. Oh, I almost forgot this came in the mail for you today. Marcus looked at the return address and immediately went pale. His hands actually started shaking as he stared at the envelope, and for a moment I worried he might have a panic attack. Where did this come from? He asked, his voice tight and strange. It was just in our mailbox. I lied again. Are not you curious what it says? Marcus set the letter down on the counter without opening it and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was like he was seeing me clearly for the first time, and what he saw disappointed him. Molly, did you contact my mother? I could not maintain the deception any longer. I just thought that maybe if I could understand what happened between you two, I could help fix it. She loves you so much, Marcus. She has been thinking about you every day for 10 years. You promised me, he said quietly. You looked me in the eyes and promised me you would never contact her. I know, but Marcus, she is so sorry. Whatever happened in the past, she wants to make it right. Do not you think everyone deserves a second chance? Marcus opened the letter then, and I watched his face as he read. Instead of the joy and relief I had expected, his expression grew darker and more pained with each line. When he finished, he crumpled the letter and threw it in the trash. She has not changed at all, he said. This letter is the same manipulation, the same refusal to acknowledge what really happened. Molly, you have no idea what you have done. I was confused and hurt by his reaction. But she said she wants to apologize. She said she loves you and misses you. How can that be manipulation? Because she is not apologizing for the right things, Marcus said. She is apologizing for our misunderstanding and for not being able to help me see Richard's good intentions. She is not apologizing for what actually happened. Then tell me what actually happened, I pleaded. Help me understand so I can help both of you. Marcus shook his head and walked toward the bedroom. Some things cannot be fixed, Molly, and some people should not be given second chances. I need you to promise me again that you will not contact her. I promised, but this time I was not sure I meant it. Sure I meant. Over the next few days, Marcus seemed distant and wary around me, like he was waiting for me to betray him again. I, meanwhile, could not stop thinking about Patricia sitting alone in that diner, crying as she talked about missing her son. My conversation with her had only strengthened my conviction that this was a situation that needed healing. A week later, I called Patricia again. I told her about Marcus's reaction to the letter and asked her to help me understand what she thought the real issue was. She sighed heavily and said she had been afraid of this. Marcus always was a sensitive child, she explained. And when Richard tried to toughen him up, Marcus took it very personally. I think over the years his memories have gotten distorted, and now he remembers Richard as much harsher than he actually was. It is like that game of telephone, you know. The story gets worse each time it is told. This made sense to me. Childhood memories could definitely become exaggerated over time, especially traumatic ones. If Marcus had been particularly sensitive, he might have interpreted normal discipline as something much worse. Patricia seemed to understand this and was willing to be patient with him. What I think Marcus needs, she continued, is to see that I have changed, that I understand his perspective now. But he is never going to give me that chance unless someone he trusts can help him see that I am sincere. I found myself agreeing to continue serving as a bridge between them. Over the next month, I met with Patricia twice more, each time learning more about their family history and becoming more convinced that I could help them heal their relationship. She told me about Richard's death and how much it had changed her perspective about the grief counseling she had attended and about how desperately she wanted to make amends with Marcus. Meanwhile, Marcus seemed to sense that something was going on, though I was careful not to mention Patricia directly. He started asking probing questions about where I had been, who I'd been talking to, and whether anything was bothering me. I deflected these questions as best I could, telling myself that once the reunion happened and Marcus saw how much his mother had changed, he would understand why I'd kept it secret. The plan I eventually settled on was simple, but I believed powerful. I would invite Patricia to our house for dinner on a night when Marcus was coming home from a particularly stressful week at work. When he walked in and saw his mother sitting in our living room, his initial shock would give way to curiosity, and Patricia would have the chance to demonstrate how much she had changed. I would facilitate the conversation, helping them navigate any awkward moments, and by the end of the evening, they would be on the path to rebuilding their relationship. I chose a Friday evening in late October, when Marcus had been working overtime on a difficult project and would be emotionally vulnerable. I told him I was making his favorite dinner to help him relax, and I asked Patricia to arrive an hour before Marcus was due home so we could prepare what she would say. Patricia arrived right on time, carrying a small gift bag and wearing what were clearly her best clothes. She seemed nervous but excited, and she kept asking me if I thought Marcus would be happy to see her. Just be yourself, I told her. Be honest about your feelings and your regrets, and I know he will respond to that. When we heard Marcus's car in the driveway, Patricia positioned herself on our couch while I went to meet him at the door. He looked exhausted but smiled when he saw me commenting on how good dinner smelled and asking if he had time for a quick shower before we ate. Actually, I said, taking his hand and leading him toward the living room, there is someone here who wants to see you. Marcus stopped dead when he saw Patricia sitting on our couch. The color drained from his face and he actually took a step backward, bumping into me. What is she doing here? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I invited her, I said quickly. Marcus, she has driven all the way from Colorado Springs because she wants to talk to you. She has so much she wants to say, so many things to apologize for. Patricia stood up, then tears already starting to flow down her cheeks. Marcus, my baby, you look so good. I have missed you so much. But instead of the emotional reunion I had envisioned, Marcus began to shake. His breathing became rapid and shallow, and he grabbed onto the doorframe for support. It looked like he was having some kind of panic attack. Get her out, he managed to say. Get her out of my house right now. Marcus, please, Patricia said, stepping toward him. I know you are angry, but if you could just listen to me for 5 minutes. I have changed so much since Richard died. I understand now that I made mistakes and I want to make it right. You do not understand anything, Marcus said, his voice getting stronger and more angry. You never understood anything. I stepped between them, trying to diffuse the situation. Let us all just sit down and talk this through calmly. Patricia has come here because she loves you, Marcus. She wants to be part of your life again. She wants to be part of my life. Marcus laughed, but it was a harsh, bitter sound. Where was that desire when Richard was hurting me? Where was that love when I needed her protection? Patricia's face changed, then becoming defensive. Richard never hurt you, Marcus. He was strict, yes, but he was trying to make you into a man. You were so defiant, so disrespectful. Someone had to teach you discipline. Discipline. Marcus's voice rose to a shout. Is that what you call it when he would come into my room at night? Is that what you call it when he told me it was our special secret and that you would never believe me anyway? The words hung in the air like a physical presence, and I felt my entire world shift. This was not the story Patricia had told me. This was something much darker, much more serious than a clash between a stepfather and a rebellious teenager. Patricia shook her head vigorously. That is not true, Marcus. Richard would never do something like that. You always had such an active imagination. An active imagination. Marcus turned to look at me, and the pain in his eyes was unlike anything I had ever seen. Did you hear that, Molly? According to my mother, the years of sexual abuse I endured were just my imagination. I felt like I was going to be sick. This was not the story I'd been told. This was not the family conflict I thought I was helping to resolve. This was something horrific and real, and I had brought this woman into our home, into the safe space Marcus had built for himself. Marcus, Patricia said, her voice taking on a pleading tone. You have to understand I was in such a difficult position. Richard was my husband, and you were always so angry, so difficult to manage. I thought maybe if you just tried to get along with him better. You knew, Marcus said quietly. You knew what he was doing to me, and you chose him anyway. It was not that simple, Patricia protested. I needed Richard. I could not raise you alone, and I thought maybe you were exaggerating or maybe you had misunderstood his intentions. Marcus looked at me again, and I could see something breaking in his expression. And you brought her here into our home. After I told you never to contact her, after I begged you to leave this alone, you decided you knew better. I tried to speak, to apologize, to somehow fix what I had broken, but no words came. I had been so confident that I understood the situation, so sure that my good intentions would lead to healing. But I had been completely catastrophically wrong. Both of you need to leave, Marcus said. Right now. Patricia started to protest to plead for more time, but Marcus cut her off. If you ever contact me again, if you ever try to reach out through Molly or anyone else, I will get a restraining order. Do you understand me? As Patricia gathered her purse and her gift bag, she turned to me with an expression that was no longer sad or regretful. Now she just looked annoyed. I hope you are happy, she said. You have made everything so much worse. Marcus always was dramatic, and now you have encouraged him to dwell on things that happened years ago instead of moving forward. After Patricia left, Marcus and I sat in our living room in complete silence for what felt like hours. I kept trying to find words to express how sorry I was, how much I regretted my interference, but every apology felt inadequate in the face of what I had done. Finally, Marcus spoke. Pack a bag, Molly. I want you out of here tonight. Marcus, please let me explain. I thought I was helping. I thought she had changed. You thought you knew better than I did about my own life, he said. You thought your need to fix things was more important than my need to feel safe in my own home. That is not fair. I said, though, even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were wrong. I was trying to help you heal. By bringing my abuser's enabler into our living room, by forcing me to relive the worst period of my life, by making me explain to my wife why I was sexually abused as a child. Marcus stood up and started pacing. Do you have any idea what you have put me through tonight? I did not know what to say. Every defense I tried to mount in my head crumbled when I looked at his face, when I remembered the panic in his eyes when he saw Patricia, when I replayed her dismissive comments about his imagination and her need to move forward. I am so sorry, I whispered. I honestly thought I was doing the right thing. That is the problem, Molly. You always think you are doing the right thing even when you are steamrolling over other people's boundaries. You promised me you would not contact her, and you did it anyway. You decided that your judgment about my family was better than mine. Marcus went to our bedroom and started pulling my clothes out of the dresser, throwing them into a suitcase with shaking hands. I followed him, trying to convince him that we could work through this, that I had learned my lesson and would never interfere again. It is too late for that, he said without looking at me. I trusted you with the most painful part of my past, and you used that trust to hurt me in the worst possible way. I cannot be married to someone who thinks they know what is best for me better than I do. I spent that first night in a hotel crying until I had no tears left and replaying every conversation I had had with Patricia. How had I missed the signs? How had I been so thoroughly manipulated? Looking back, I could see moments when she had been evasive or dismissive, times when her story had not quite added up. But I had been so focused on the outcome I wanted that I had ignored the red flags. The next morning, I called Patricia, hoping to make sense of what had happened. When she answered, her voice was cold and irritated. I hope you are satisfied, she said before I could even speak. You have ruined any chance I had of reconciling with my son. Patricia, what Marcus said about Richard, is it true? There was a long pause, and then she sighed. Marcus always was a difficult child, very dramatic and attention-seeking. Richard tried his best with him, but Marcus never appreciated anything Richard did for our family. But the abuse of the things Marcus described. Richard is dead, Molly. What does it matter now? Marcus should be focused on moving forward with his life, not dwelling on ancient history. I felt a chill run down my spine. Even now, even after everything had fallen apart, Patricia was still minimizing and denying what had happened to her son. She was still more concerned with protecting Richard's memory than with acknowledging Marcus's pain. You knew, did not you? I asked. You knew what Richard was doing to Marcus. I do not know what you expect me to say, Patricia replied. I was trying to keep my family together under very difficult circumstances. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made. I hung up the phone, finally understanding the full scope of my mistake. I had not just misunderstood a family disagreement. I had allied myself with someone who had failed to protect her child from a predator, and I had forced my husband to face that betrayal all over again. Over the next few weeks, I tried repeatedly to contact Marcus, sending texts and emails explaining how sorry I was and begging for a chance to make things right. His responses, when they came at all, were brief and final. He was filing for divorce, he said, and he did not want to see or speak to me again. My sister Emma drove down from Ohio when I called her sobbing one night, unable to cope with what I had done. She helped me pack up my belongings from the house Marcus and I had shared, and she listened as I tried to explain how everything had gone so wrong. You have always had this thing, Emma said gently as we folded my clothes into boxes. This need to fix everyone around you. But Molly, some things are not meant to be fixed by outsiders. Some healing has to come from within. I started seeing a therapist that Emma found for me, a woman named Dr. Sarah, who specialized in codependency and boundary issues. Through our sessions, I began to understand the pattern I had been following my entire life, identifying people I perceived as broken, inserting myself into their situations, and prioritizing my need to help over their need for autonomy. Good intentions do not excuse harmful actions, Dr. Sarah told me during one particularly difficult session. When you decided you knew better than Marcus about his own family, you were not acting out of love. You were acting out of a need to control the narrative and be the hero of his story. The hardest part was accepting that Marcus had been right to set boundaries with his mother, and that my violation of those boundaries had re traumatized him in ways I was only beginning to understand. I learned about secondary trauma, about how abuse survivors need to maintain control over their healing process, and about the damage that well meaning but misguided interventions can cause. 3 months after that terrible dinner, I received a letter from Marcus's attorney informing me that the divorce was final. Along with the legal documents was a brief note from Marcus himself, written in his careful handwriting on a piece of plain white paper. Molly, I hope someday you will understand that loving someone means respecting their choices even when you do not understand them. I hope you will learn that healing cannot be forced and that some wounds can only be tended by the person who carries them. I wish you peace and growth in your future. I read that letter dozens of times, each word a reminder of what I had lost through my arrogance and interference. But slowly, over months of therapy and painful self reflection, I began to see it not just as an ending, but as a lesson. I learned to sit with discomfort instead of rushing to fix it. I learned to trust other people's judgment about their own lives, even when their choices seemed wrong to me. Most importantly, I learned that real love sometimes means stepping back, not stepping in. The apartment I live in now is small and quiet, nothing like the home Marcus and I shared. But it is mine, and in it, I am learning to be comfortable with solitude and uncertainty. I no longer feel the compulsive need to save everyone around me, and I have started to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than my perceived ability to solve other people's problems. I think about Marcus often, and I hope he has found the peace and healing he deserves. I know now that I cannot be part of that journey, and for the first time in my life, I am okay with not being needed. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to honor someone's boundaries, trust their wisdom about their own life, and let them heal in their own way and time. If you have made it this far in my story, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever struggled with wanting to fix someone else's problems? How do you know when to help and when to step back? Please like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more real stories about relationships and personal growth, and share this with someone who might need to hear about the importance of respecting boundaries. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you think about the difference between loving someone and trying to control their healing. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust someone else to know what is best for their own life.